Very supportive. Okay, so next we have Maggie Olson.
My poem's called Pity the Beautiful by Dana Gioia. Pity the beautiful, the dolls and the dishes, the babes with big daddies granting their wishes. Pity the pretty boys, the hunks, the Apollos, the golden lads whom success always follows. The hotties, the knockouts, the 10 out of 10, the drop-dead gorgeous great leading men. Pity the faded, the bloaty, the blousy, the paunchy Adonis whose luck's gone lousy. Pity the gods, no longer divine. Pity the night, the stars lose their shine.
Okay, so we have a tweet from Zach Murphy. Nice job, Tristan. Digging the sweatshirt. Okay. So next up is Jenna Labadini.
So the poem I did is Abandoned Farmhouse by Ted Kuzer. He was a big man, says the size of his shoes on the pile of broken dishes by the house. A tall man, too, says the length of the bed in the upstairs room. And a good God-fearing man, says the Bible with the broken back on the floor below the window, dusty with sun. But not a man for farming, says the fields, cluttered with boulders and the leaky barn. A woman lived with him, says the bedroom wall papered with lilacs and the kitchen shelves covered with oilcloth. And they had a child, says the sandbox made from the tractor tire. Money was scarce, said the jars of plum preserved and canned tomatoes sealed in the cellar hole. In winters, cold, said the rags in the window frames. It was lonely there, says the narrow country road. Something went wrong, says the empty house in the yard, Something went wrong, says the empty house with the weed-choked yard. Stones in the field says that he was not a farmer, and still-sealed jars in the cellar says that she left in a nervous haste. In the child, the toys were strewn in the yard like branches after a storm. A rubber cow, a rusty tractor with no plow, dolls in overalls. Something went wrong, they say.
Okay, so I'm not seeing any tweets on here yet, but because everyone's doing pretty good. So Jillian Buckley is next.
Sweetness, Stephen Dunn. Just when it has seemed I couldn't bear one more friend waking with a tumor, one more maniac with a perfect reason, often a sweetness has come and changed nothing in the world except the way I stumbled through it. For a while lost in the ignorance of loving someone or something, the world shrunk to mouth size, hand size, and never seeming small. I acknowledge there is no sweetness that doesn't leave a stain, no sweetness that's ever sufficiently sweet. Tonight, a friend called to say his lover was killed in a car he was driving. His voice was low and guttural. He repeated what he needed to repeat, and I repeated the one or two words we have for such grief until we were speaking only in tones. Often, a sweetness comes, as if on loan, stays just long enough to make sense of what it means to be alive, then returns to its dark source. As for me, I don't care where it's been or what bitter road it's traveled to come so far to taste so good.
Okay, so we have a tweet from Jenna Labadini. Maggie did great. The sound of her poem was amazing. I love Pity the Beautiful. So next we have Angela Licata.
The Other Side by Jennifer Elise Forster. My crown, my room, surrounding snow. These are not my hands, my winter shoes carried off by uncertain music. There is a meadow behind my house, and if I should see myself there, she would tell me there was never a meadow, and then carry on, and then walk through me as if through a cloud, and carry on in her own solitary direction. Crows still caw in her palace garden. Tram rails, rain, stammering moon. Once lilacs bloomed, their huge white knuckles breaking the winter of my room. It was a dream. French windows on a Viennese street. Every street I crossed, angling alongside smoggy post-war artifices. Branches scratch against my sleep. How my body was a branch in my sleep, and when I woke years later, I peered down upon it leafless and stiff. No roost left, no caw, no birds blooming in my dreams' green crooks. Afternoons alone are labyrinthine. I wandered the city, searching. For what? Friends? We knew where to find each other, tapping the window of the winter room. We were thinner then, younger than the chestnut trees. Everything has its seed, much later and on the other side of time.
Okay, so we have no new tweets. And next up is Mitchell Powers.
The Obligation to be Happy by Linda Pastan. It is more onerous than the rites of beauty or housework, harder than love, but you expect it of me casually, the way you expect the sun to come up, not in spite of rain or clouds, but because of them. And so I smile, as if my own fidelity to sadness were a hidden vice, that downward tug on my mouth. My old suspicion that health and love are brief irrelevancies, no more than laughter in the warm dark, strangled at dawn. Happiness. I try to hoist it on my narrow shoulders again, a knapsack heavy with gold coins. I stumble around the house, bump into things only Midas himself would understand.
Okay, so no tweets again. This is fun. So last but not least, we have Nathan Blanchard.
Numbers by Mary Cornish. I like the generosity of numbers. The way, for example, the room count anything or anyone. 2 pickles, 1 door of the room. 8 dancers dressed as swans. I like the domesticity of addition. Add 2 cups of milk and stir, a sense of plenty. 6 plums on the ground, 3 more falling from the tree. And multiplication school of fish times fish, whose silver bodies breed beneath the shadow of a boat. Even subtraction is never lost, just addition somewhere else. 5 sparrows, take away 2. The 2 in someone else's garden now. There's an amplitude to long division, as it opens Chinese take-out box with paper box, instead every folded cookie a new fortune. And I never failed to be surprised by the gift of an odd remainder, footloose at the end. 47 divided by 11 equals 4, with 3 remaining. 3 boys beyond their mother's call. 2 Italians off to the sea. One suck that isn't anywhere you look.
Okay, so now would anyone like to just come up and recite a poem or anything? No? Anyone?
Mr. Casey, Mr. Casey, Mr. Casey, Mr. Casey, will you bring my braid up if I do it? That's a serious question. Then no. You need to have a love for literature. I played lots of
Stopping by the Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near. Between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year, he gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep.
Kiki, do you love me? Are you riding so you never ever leave from beside me? Because I want you and I need you. Hold on, no, you're going, Kiki, do you love me? Yeah.
Excuse me? Thank you. In My Feelings. By Drake. Kiki, do you love me? Are you riding? So you never ever leave from beside me. Cause I want you, and I need you, and I'm down for you always. Thank you.
Can I get something?
Roses are red, violets are blue. I don't know my poem, and neither do you.
Silence. Okay, so we have one last tweet. Way to go, Mitch. Hashtag wish you did 300 goats, but what can I do? But anyways, that kind of wraps up the end of our semifinals for period 6. Thank you for coming, and good luck to the people that go on for tomorrow. We will announce the 7 people in the morning or tomorrow. 7th period today. Okay.
Everything changes.
Life.
Quiet in the house, please. Thank you. All right, sure. All right. Welcome to Period 7 Poetry Out Loud recitations. During the program, you can tweet to be on the live stream at hashtag poll19. That's POL 19 on the live feed, which will be on some Pentucket YouTube channel somewhere. So yeah. First up today we have Zach Roberts. Quiet in the house. Yeah, here's Zach Roberts.
The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. Two roads diverge in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps a better claim because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that, the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference.
Quiet in the house. Next up, we have Emma Fandel.
More Lies by Kern Gottschall. Sometimes I say I'm going to meet my sister at the cafe, even though I have no sister, just because it's such a beautiful thing to say. I've always thought so. Ever since I read a novel in which two sisters were constantly meeting in cafes. Today, for example, I walked alone, on the wet sidewalk, wearing my rain boots, expecting someone might ask where I was headed. I bought a steno pad and a watch battery. The store windows fogged up. Rain in April is a kind of promise, and it cost nothing. I carried a bag of books to the cafe and ordered tea. I like a place that's lit by lamps. I like a place where you can hear people talk about small things, like the difference between azure and cerulean, and the price of tulips. It's going down. I watched someone who could be my sister walk in, shaking the rain from her hair. I thought, even now, florists are filling their coolers with tulips, $5 a bundle. All over the city there are sisters. Any one of them could be mine.
It's so hard to stand up here and say a poem, and you have got to be quiet when people are doing it. You have to. No rattling, no whispering. It's not cool, okay? Oh, was that on the live feed? Can you delete that out? Seriously, cut that out, yeah. Thanks.
Christos Stamateas.
Auto Lullaby by Franz Wright. Think of a sheep knitting a sweater. Think of your life getting better and better. Think of your cat asleep in a tree. Think of that spot where you once skinned your knee. Think of a bird that stands in your palm. Try to remember the 21st Psalm. Think of a big pink horse galloping south. Think of a fly and close your mouth. If you feel thirsty, then drink from your cup. The birds will keep singing until they wake up.
Just a reminder, you can go to hashtag poll19 to get your tweet on the live stream on Twitter. Yeah, so do that right now, please. Yeah, next up we have Michaela Tilden.
The Donkey by G.K. Chesterton. When fishes flew and forests walked and figs grew upon thorn, some moment when the moon was blood, then surely I was born. With monstrous head and sickening cry and ears like errant wings, the devil's walking parody on all four-footed things. The tattered outlaw of the earth, of ancient crooked will, starve, scourge, deride me, I am dumb, I keep my secret still. Fools, for I had my hour, one far fierce hour and sweet. There was a shout about my ears and palms before my feet.
Time for another poem. Caroline Clark.
Okay, now we're good. Sorry. Counting is
Part for the Whole by Robert Francis. When others run to windows or out of doors to catch the sunset whole, he is content with any segment, anywhere he sits. From segment, fragment, he can reconstruct the whole, prefers to reconstruct the whole, as if to say, I see more, seeing less. A window to the east will serve as well as window to the west, for eastern sky echoes western sky. And even less, a patch of light that picture glass happens to catch from window glass, fragment of fragment, flawed, distorted, dulled. Nevertheless, gives something unglassed nature cannot give, the old obliquity of art, and proves part may be more than whole, least may be best.
Next, we have Kelly Atwood. All right, I guess we have Nathan Conway.
The Snowman by Wallace Stevens. One must have a mind of winter to regard the frosts and the boughs of the pine trees crusted with snow, and have been cold a long time to behold the junipers shagged with ice, the spruces rough in the distant glitter of the January sun, and not to think of any misery in the sound of the wind, in the sound of a few leaves, which is the sound of the land, full of the same wind that is blowing in the same bare place for the listener who listens in the snow. And nothing himself beholds nothing that is not there in the nothing that is.
Next, we have Kayla King. Guess not. Vanessa Franco.
Good People by W.S. Merwin. From the kindness of my parents, I suppose it was that I held that belief about suffering, imagining that if only it could come to the attention of any person with normal feelings, certainly anyone literate who might have gone to college, they would comprehend pain when it went on before them and would do something about it whenever they saw it happen. In the time of pain, the present, they would try to stop the bleeding, for example, with their own hands. But it escapes their attention, or there may be reasons for it. The victims under the blankets, the meat counters, the maimed children, the animals staring from the end of the world.
Next, we have Matt Hersey.
Am I good? All right. September 1918 by Amy Lowell. This afternoon was the color of water falling through sunlight. The trees glittered with the tumbling of leaves. The sidewalks shone like alleys of dropped maple leaves, and the houses ran along them, laughing out of square open windows. Under a tree in the park, two little boys lying flat on their faces were carefully gathering red berries to put in a pasteboard box. Someday, there will be no war. Then I shall take out this afternoon and turn it in my fingers, and remark the sweet taste of it upon my palate, and note the crisp variety of its flights of leaves. Today, I can only gather it and put it in my lunchbox, for I have time for nothing but the endeavor to balance myself upon a broken world.
Yeah, please tweet hashtag POL19 because we have nothing right now. And yeah, thank you. Next we have John Davis. please tweet.
Yeah. All set? All right. Very Large Moth by Craig Arnold, after DHL. Your first thought when the light snaps on and the black wings clatter about the kitchen is a bat. The clear part of your mind considers rabies. The other part does not consider, knows only to startle and cower away from the slap of its wings, though it is soon clearly not a bat, but a moth, and harmless. Still, you're shy of it. It clings to the hood of the stove, not black, but brown. Its orange eyes sparkle like televisions. Its leg joints are large enough to count. How could you kill it? Where would you hide the body? A creature so solid must have room for a soul, and if this is so, then why not in a creature half its size, or half its size again, and so on, down to the ants? Clearly, it must be saved. Caught in a shopping bag and rushed to the front door, afraid to crush it, feeling the plastic rattle, loosened into the night air. It batters the porch light, throwing fitful shadows around the landing. That was a really big moth, is all you can say to the doorman who has watched your whole performance with a smile. The half compassion and half horror we feel for the creatures we want not to hurt and prefer not to touch. Thank you.
Oh, I'm saying it, yeah. Okay, yeah, so, yeah, the tweet by @YoungNigerian says that the announcer was terrible, 7th period. Thank you. Appreciate it, yeah. Yeah, next we have Molly Forget.
Good. The Enigma by Anne Stevenson. Falling.
If you need to step out, do so.
The Enigma by Anne Stevenson. Falling to sleep last night in a deep crevasse between one rough dream and another, I seemed still awake to be stranded on a stony path, and there the familiar enigma presented itself in the shape of a little trembling lamb. It was lying like a pearl in the trough between one Welsh slab and another, and it was crying. I looked around, as anyone would, for its mother. Nothing was there. What did I know about lambs? Should I pick it up, carry it? Where? What would I do if it were dying? The hand of my conscience fought with the claw of my fear. It wasn't so easy to imitate the Good Shepherd in that faded, framed Sunday school picture, filtering now through the dream's daguerreotype. With the wind fallen and the moon swollen to the full, small white doubles of the creature at my feet flared like candles in the creases of the night until it looked to be alive with newborn lambs. Where could they all have come from? A second look, and the bleating lambs were birds, kittiwakes nesting, clustered on a cliff face, fixing on me their dark, accusing eyes. They had a kind of imperative not to touch them, but to be of them, whatever they were. Now lambs, now birds, now floating points of light, fireflies signaling how many lost New England summers. One form, now another, one configuration, now another. Like fossils locked deep in the folds of my brain, outliving a time by telling its story, like stars.
Okay, sure. At VFranco7801 says, Pentucket poetry rocks with 3 exclamation points. Yeah. And official Phil Swift says, hey guys, Phil Swift here. Great job on the poems and good luck in the finals. Thanks, Phil. Next we have Anna Dixon.
Okay. No, it's fine. Don't Bother the Earth Spirit by Joy Harjo. Don't bother the Earth Spirit who lives here. She is working on a story. It is the oldest story in the world, and it is delicate, changing. If she sees you watching, she will invite you in for coffee, give you warm bread, and you will be obligated to stay and listen. But this is no ordinary story. You will have to endure earthquakes, lightning, the deaths of all those you love, the most blinding beauty. It is a story so compelling, you may never want to leave. This is how she traps you. See that stone finger over there? That is the only one who ever escaped.
At Seamus O'Keefe says, we want Charlie G. And Charlie G's back there hanging out, so, you know, yeah. And at Big Dumb 92 says, shout out to Mrs. Cromwell. Yeah, thank you. So, next we have Mac Mansfield Parisi.
Are we good? Okay. Tarantulas on the Life Buoy by Thomas Lux. For some semi-tropical reason, when the rains fall, relentlessly they fall into swimming pools, these otherwise bright and scary arachnids. They can swim a little, but not for long, and they can't climb the ladder out. They usually drown. But if you want their favor, if you believe there is justice, a reward for not loving the death of an ugly and even dangerous, the eel, hog snake, rats, creature, if you believe these things, you would leave a life buoy or two in your swimming pool at night. And in the morning, you would haul ashore the huddled, hairy survivors and escort them back to the bush. And know, be assured, that at least these saved as individuals would not turn up again someday in your hat drawer, the tangled underworld of your socks. And that even when your belief in justice merges with your belief in dreams, they may tell the others in a sign language 4 times as subtle and complicated as man's, that you are good, that you love them, that you would save them again.
All right, that concludes 7th period poetry out loud recitations. So go back to class, please. That's it. See you tomorrow. Fifth period in the auditorium will be the finals. So be there.